Hello, my name's Rob Edwards. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about Doctor Who Revolution of the Daleks, the 2021 festive special. I'm going to talk about things I liked, some of the things which didn't quite land for me, and at the end I've got a few nitpicks that I want to share. But first of all, what's my general sense of this episode? Well, if I were to sum it up, I guess it would be not too festive, not too special. I didn't dislike this episode, but I can't really bring myself to like it either. I've watched it twice now, and it's left me kind of just feeling a bit flat. Look, it's difficult really to judge it for what against what I wanted it to be. And I accept that. I understand that I can't just go and go, well, this is not the episode I would have made. But all the same, after such a long gap since the last episode of Doctor Who, and with expecting a long gap before the next episode of Doctor Who, I wanted something a bit more high concept, action-based, or, just sort of wacky and off the wall and kind of in your face, really. And what we got instead was something a bit more measured, a bit more, I'm not sure thoughtful is quite the right word, because, but it ended up being not a terribly festive episode, not a very special episode, not the episode that I wanted after the long gap, essentially. If I were to give it a rating, 6 out of 10 maybe. It really isn't awful. It isn't. But it really isn't very good either. So, what did I like? Well, first of all, I really like the design of the Dalek drones. I think the black and silver colour scheme is great, particularly when you splash in some red when they turn evil. I love the general overall design of them, the shape of them, the look and feel of them. If Chris Chibnall had said to us, this is what Daleks are going to look like from now on, I'm not sure I would have been very disappointed. That said, I also quite like the fact that they were relatively easy to defeat, by regular Daleks anyway, because of course they are copies of a drone shell that the reconnaissance Dalek threw together in a farm shed. So, of course, it's not got the special materials like Dalekanium. It's not got the special, potentially the special force field action that the Bronze Daleks have going for them. So all of that contributes to quite a nice design for these drone Daleks. I quite like that. I like both of the returning Jacks. Jack Robertson, I'm not going to claim he was nuanced in this episode, but after a very one-note introduction in Arachnids in the UK, I thought there was more complexity to the character, more levels to the character this time around. And I quite enjoyed that aspect of his character. And of course it was great to see Captain Jack back. John Barrowman has a certain level of energy that he brings to everything that he does, and it was a breath of fresh air having him back in the show for so much of it. And some great interactions between him and the regular TARDIS crew as well. Actually, on that note, I liked a lot of the character work. I thought the conversation between Ryan and the Doctor was really, really good. A bit strangely placed in the episode, 4 minutes to Osaka, sure. But actually, the meat of that conversation was really quite interesting. And I thought the Jack and Yaz conversation that happened at more or less the same time, where Jack shares his insight to being without the Doctor for a long time, was really interesting too. And I did like Yaz's reaction for the Doctor being away for so long, actually, literally pushing her away and demanding some kind of explanation. All of that was great. I have a few problems with some of the other stuff, but that stuff was all good. I love that we got some Dalek on Dalek action. I've been wanting to see a Dalek civil war take place in New Who for a really long time. And while this wasn't it went some way towards scratching that itch in the first place. I enjoyed, as I said, the fact that the Bronze Daleks, when it came to it, just wiped out the drone Daleks without really any difficulty at all. that was appropriate, that was right, that was very satisfying. And I like the fact that the solution for the bronze Daleks was different than the solution from the drone Daleks. The Doctor doesn't have the relationship with the reconnaissance level era Dalek mutants, so the clones taken from the reconnaissance Dalek would not have had the drive to follow the Doctor into the TARDIS that the Doctor was able to trick the bronze Daleks with at the end. So I like the fact that the two solutions were different. Although, again, I have a couple of other problems which we'll get to in the dislikes. And I really liked the departure scene. The conversation at the end where Ryan actually steps up and says, look, it's been great, but that's enough for me. To have a companion leave on their own terms, and actually leave on their own terms because it's right for them, not because their relationship with the Doctor wasn't working. I think that, the Ryan and the Doctor were still having a pretty good working relationship. And it wasn't that, as in the Martha Jones case, that the Doctor was not returning Ryan's affections. They like each other, they get on fine, but that's not what their relationship is about. So when Ryan steps forward and says, look, that's it. I've got stuff I need to do here. I've reconnected with my friends. All of that made sense. And also Graham wanting to leave and be with his grandson. That was kind of sweet. It made sense. He was only really there ever to be with Ryan anyway. And we've not had anything to do with Graham for like a season now. He was brilliant in season 11, but I think he was a forgotten companion in season 12. And he wasn't really a major factor of this episode either. So it made sense. It really made sense for Graham to leave at this point as well. And I do like the potential for having just a Doctor and Yaz dynamic on the TARDIS. Although, now we've learned that there's another companion coming, which I think I might do a separate video about. That also possibly may be a bit spoiled. But there was a problem with the departure, but we'll get back to that when I get into my dislikes, which it's now remarkable. What did I dislike about this episode? I thought the pacing was just really weird. Partly this is not the episode's fault. Again, this is partly because we have a long gap since the last Doctor Who, and now we are going to have a long gap until the next Doctor Who. So to spend so long away from the Doctors and the companions and the main kind of conflict of the episode was regrettable in hindsight. Maybe if this had been an episode that we had just before leaping into season 13, that would have been different. But as it stands right now, we've got a long way to the next episode, and to waste so much of even the extended runtime on stuff which isn't really what we are here for. We're not here to see, and I think, nameless character get poisoned while driving a lorry. I mean, that's not what we tuned into Doctor Who for. Admittedly, some classic era stuff I'd spent ages on setup, but they would have 4 or 6 or 10 episodes to allow them to do that. We only had 1 this time. The prison scene, is it just me or was that a bit weird? I actually quite liked the scenes that we got in the prison, but there seemed to be no consequence from any of it, and the escape was far too easy. It really did seem like a case of we want to park the Doctor at the end of the episode to give some time for the companions to get back on Earth, and in the case of Ryan and Graham, possibly realise it was time for them to go. Except that, of course, Ryan's already reached that decision by the end of the season. We knew that already from his reaction to Orphan 55 and some of the conversations they had with Yaz towards the end of the season. We knew that Ryan was on the cusp of going. So what was the point of separating them for that long? Again, if we were going to be in prison with the Doctor, have some more consequence to those scenes. We didn't even really see much of a change of character, given that she's been there for 20 years and agonising about who she is after the revelations of the Timeless Children. We saw the Doctor in prison. She seemed to be pretty much herself. So it's not like she was even particularly chastened or subdued by the revelations and our capture. I said earlier that I liked the fact that the solutions for the two Dalek factions were different, and that is true. But why did the Doctor immediately leap to the nuclear option for trying to beat the Dalek drones? I would have much more enjoyed a period of trying out a few things to resist the Daleks, the Dalek drones and their reign of terror on the human population, and then going, it's no good, everything we've tried doesn't work, we're going to have to go for the nuclear option. That's not what happens. Instead, we go, oh, there are Dalek drones, we better go nuclear. It doesn't work for me. And the reason why it's like that is we spent so much time on setting up stuff with characters we didn't care about and will never see again. So, again, it's come back to that pacing thing. Cut out some of that early stuff and we get some more time with the meat of the thing, with Dalek action and the whole setting up the departure side. I would have loved to have seen some more of Ryan and Yaz and Graham and their time during that 10-month period. How did they get on? Is Yaz still a police officer? Because if she spent 10 months wrapped up in the other TARDIS, with her conspiracy wall and her red tape and all the rest of it, it seems strange that she would still have her job. And I said earlier, I like the Dalek on Dalek action. I like the sort of proto-civil war that we had. I'm slightly sad. I slightly dislike the fact that we've kind of wasted that concept now, because I think that's a really strong concept which would allow us to use Daleks in an interesting way, would allow us to have Daleks who won encounters with the Doctor, because if the Doctor sided with one faction or the other in a Dalek civil war, it gives the scope for the Daleks to maintain a threat by being dangerous, by being victorious, if I can use that word. Oh, and I said that I enjoyed the departure up to a point. The point that I didn't enjoy was Ghost Grace. I mean, talk about laying it on thick. I mean, ugh. The mirroring of the start of the era and the end of Ryan's era, I mean, I can kind of see why they did it, but it was a bit, wasn't it? And, oh, the sun was in my eyes is a fine line, except for the fact that the sun was clearly behind his head when he was saying it. So, yeah, didn't really sing for me, that one. What about nitpicks? I do have a few, and these are things I'm not going to necessarily count against the episode, but there are things which could have been fixed in possibly just a few lines of dialogue. I mean, Chris Chibnall, we know, likes to tell rather than show. You could have dropped a couple of lines in to explain some of this and just made it a little bit more clear. So, okay, first one. The Dalek clone farm in Osaka. I have no problem with the idea that the Dalek was able to connect to the network and even in a very short amount of time put into action setting up this clone farm in Osaka. What I don't understand is how that clone farm got any Dalek DNA to work from. As far as I could tell from the way the episode was presented and the sequence of the scenes, the Dalek didn't break out and take over Leo until everything was already in full swing. I don't think the Dalek had more than 24 hours after taking over Leo to seeing the Dalek farm in Osaka full of Dalek mutants. Does it really take so little time? To clone an army of Daleks for your drones? That doesn't seem right to me. Now, incredulity is not an explanation, but that felt really weird, and it just needed a bit more, perhaps replacing that scene where Leo gets taken over to be earlier in the whole process so that we had some time for that. The Dalek control seems kind of ambiguous. As soon as the Dalek leapt onto the back of Leo, he was in full control. The Dalek jumped onto the back of Jack and onto the back of Yaz. At one point, there were Dalek mutants on both of them, and yet they were both able to act independently long enough to get both of those Daleks killed. I mean, okay, they are the heroes. You kind of expect them to be treated slightly differently by the bad guys' special abilities. I mean, that's kind of par for the course, but it still felt a bit weird. And why didn't they try and save Leo? I mean, we were able to get the Dalek mutant off of the back of Yaz by getting her to stand still long enough for Jack to shoot the Dalek with his squareness gun. Love the squareness gun. Leo, I watched on my second viewing, Leo was in the room with Jack and his squareness gun for quite a long monologue. And I know villain monologues aren't interrupted generally, but it would have been entirely possible for Jack to get a shot off to shoot the Dalek off the back of Leo. And he didn't even try. So that was just weird for me. And the final nitpick I have, it's kind of fundamental. And there were some lines of dialogue attempting to explain it. But I don't know that they really were very convincing. Why were the Dalek drones impure? I mean, you could say that they didn't have enough DNA, so they had to be augmented by human DNA, and that is why they are impure. And I think that's what they were going for. There was talk in the TARDIS about the Doctor saying, oh, the DNA is scrambled or whatever. But actually, you know, if you're growing from the few cells of Dalek DNA you had from the reconnaissance Dalek, that was arguably more pure, less mutated than the Bronze Daleks. Because the Bronze Daleks have had thousands of years to have tampering, tinkering with their DNA happening on Skaro, while the Dalek has been the reconnaissance Dalek was kind of in an archaeology thing waiting to be dug up for thousands of years. So, you know, he has not mutated during that period, but the Skaro Daleks potentially have. They've been more exposed to radiation during all that time, and mad scientists for that matter. It's quite difficult to work out whether these are not ones like from Parting of the Ways which were half human, but all the same, there is a potential there for them to be more impure. So I don't know where that impurity came from. And the line, "we mutated to survive," didn't quite land for me as a result. Because at what point did they mutate to survive? They might have potentially had their DNA augmented by non-Dalek DNA to be reconstructed, but that is not the same as mutating to survive. As I say, it's a nitpick. It's not really... I don't count the episode down for this at all, but it just didn't make a great deal of sense to me. Anyway, there we go. That was my take on Revolution of the Daleks. I am going to record a separate video later today, which will probably come out in a few days' time, where I talk about the rumours about Jodie leaving and the arrival of John Bishop as a companion next season. That'll be a relatively short thing, not a 20-minute marathon like this one is. But look out for that one. That will come in the next few days. I hope you enjoyed my review of the Daleks. Let me know what you thought of this episode in the comment section down below. Everyone says that. Comment section down below. Like, share, and subscribe. Whatever. I know my channel. My channel's got like 50 subscribers. If you do see it and not fancy a subscription, that would be fantastic. But that's fine if you didn't. But if you like the video, please do like it. And I actually am curious to find out what people thought of this episode. So if you've got any feelings about Revolution, drop them in the comments. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. And I will see you really soon for my discussion about Jodie and John Bishop. Cheers.